Mhm.
Yeah, but happy Valentine's Day to you all. This is an odd audience to be saying that to, but here we are. Um,
Wouldn't happen any other way.
Amen. And
Don't
that
tell my wife I said
and
that.
that's the married guy saying that.
Yeah.
Um, yes. So we realized it was a great idea to have something archived forever that is a deep explanation and overall, yeah, it's explanation of the rules of Townball, most common contexts in which certain rules come up more often, less often, how standards of play over the years have impacted maybe amendments and to the rules and things like that to lead us to the way the current set of rules is right now. I'm not really aware that that there's anything super in flux anymore, like there would have been when these rules were first being debated. However, as of just this morning, Jones, you did say that the motherboard or some group of people was doing some recent reviews on a couple rules. So I don't know if it makes more sense, Jones, to bring those up now or later. I would imagine probably later, but I don't really know what the nature of the adjustments are. Do you think are they very
Yeah.
like over global encompassing the entire rule set, or are they more specific?
First of all, are we recording already?
Oh yeah, I've been recording for the last several minutes, but I'm gonna just edit as needed.
Okay, can I just say welcome everyone? Thank you for coming to this. I appreciate it. Let's quickly introduce ourselves. I am Daniel Jones. I'm the founder of 21st Century Townball. We've got Thomas Sanchez, Grant Moore, like you probably introduced yourself already. Jimmy Sanborn. The four of us are motherboards currently on the Townball motherboard. And like Grant said, we are going to be talking through the rules today. And to answer your question, Grant, about this, Jimmy, Tommy, and I were commissioned by the board to go through and kind of do some revisions. And there were very, very, very few things that we needed that we even changed. And they're all technicalities. So it's not things that we necessarily need to talk about. It's things like the size of the gloves and some wording. And we decided to allow for a little bit bigger, I think, stakes and that kind of thing. So should we introduce ourselves, Grant? What do you want to do?
Yes, please. You you go for yourself. Start with you.
Daniel Jones, founder of 21st Century Townball.
Tommy.
All right. Tommy Sanchez, motherboard member. Been playing since 2013 or 14. Now captain of the 21st Century West Coast team. Like
Jimmy.
Umpires.
I am Jimmy Sanborn. I am the West Coast League umpire. I've been playing town ball since about 2013, if I remember correctly, and been doing it for a little while.
Very nice. And my name is Grant Moore. I played Townball since 2019. I'm kind of the regional go-to person for Midwest Townball in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, with the help of many friends out here. And I maybe besides Jones and maybe besides Tommy, I'd like to claim the title of I love Townball more than anybody else. um, if someone wants to beat me to that title, I would gladly accept it. But so far, I think I have yet to meet a challenger. So, someone wants to depose me, I will gladly take that because it means that other people love the game as much as I do. So, um, how I think it makes sense, very briefly, maybe to explain in what manner did the rules of Town Ball actually come about. I think anybody watching this probably already has a general understanding that this rule set includes basically 100% of the Massachusetts 1858 rule set and then incorporated other aspects and precedents from late 19th century games like stool ball, rounders, and cricket to flesh out the hypothetical how would town ball have evolved in the 20th century if this had become the national pastime instead of the New York game. So I've kind of described town ball in a historical context as Massachusetts plus in the past. So that part I think probably doesn't need to be said twice. But I think what's more cool is the style in which these rules came about, which has been technically documented in the past on our 21st Century Town Ball podcast. But this is the debate style method. This is what I'm alluding to. Jones, I actually, no, I want to hear from Tommy and Jimmy first what their experience was like with the debate style method, not only as players of Town Ball, but as students of yours. And Jones, you can kind of corroborate that right afterward. But I just like, let's briefly touch on that before actually getting into all the different sections of the rules of Town Ball. So, Tommy, why don't we start with you?
Yes. So I think Jimmy and I are in unique positions because we were there from essentially the start of Town Ball when the rules were being, come up with essentially every other week. With that, we kind of found what works and what doesn't work. This game, in a way, was an unfinished game back in the 20th century. We came now as a modern 21st century team to try and make that a modern game with more modern rules, considering we have modern players who have been exposed to baseball or the New York game. Trying to make a set of rules that allows for the style we play in, which, in my opinion, I like to say it's a game where anyone can play. Has its challenges and has its advantages, and I think they work in harmony together to make, honestly, the perfect ball game.
And that balance you're describing, there are better and worse ways probably to like arrive at that harmony. How do you think the like debate style way of arguing about rules is part of why the rules have been so well thought out?
Great question. Yeah, I think when you really push for definitions on why we want to do things the way we want to do things with players and coaches and captains, we get to the root cause of why each rule needs to be in place. And it's easy to say, that this needs to be at this exact measurement or number. But when we do incorporate the Fibonacci sequence, but when we do really think about it and have multiple discussions, it brings out the best. And there's so much reason behind it that you wouldn't find in other sports.
What do you think, Jimmy?
I think the one thing to add on to what Tommy was saying, I think an important part of it is the play testing. So we'd have these discussions and we'd come to an idea and then we would go out and play a game with that rule set. Whatever we were talking about, we'd go out and we'd play and we would say, okay, how is this working? Is this what we thought it would be? And we would continue to refine not only the numerical, mental aspect of the game, but we would also then refine just how fun it was, because we wanted to make sure that it was a game that was playable and approachable by everybody, and it was something that genuinely you could have a good time with. And I think from my perspective, when I was playing in high school, first couple years, I had one mindset, but then when I graduated and the game was still evolving and I became an umpire, I had a completely different perspective of things too. Seeing how the game evolved even past that, and taking into consideration, the safety aspect of things, and the playability, and the fun, which was a huge important part of it. That play testing is hugely important, making sure that it works.
Jones, thoughts?
Yeah. So let's just do an analogy quick, like with a human being, right? You have the conception, in this case, the inception of the idea, right? And then you have the actual birth. So I would say that the inception of the game, even though I'd been thinking about this for a long time beforehand, that not that kind of inception of ideas, but as far as the game actually beginning, 2012, the moment that we fused the Fibonacci sequence into the base paths, that moment, when Brad Visacki himself, I proposed that idea on the board during one of our debate sessions. I turned my head and looked right at him because, again, I got to shout out to Brad Visacki. He was very instrumental in the inception of this game. I bounced so many ideas off of that man. So thank you to Brad Visacki for that. And the moment I turned to him and he looked like this, and I saw him among the students nod his head, that was the inception of the game. That was the beginning of Townball. But like Tommy and Jimmy have said, there's a lot of road testing needs to happen even after that. So 2012 was our first official season. That's when Tommy was a freshman in high school, and he was on my team actually. That was the birth of Townball, because I said to Shivam right before, we're going to actually road test this officially for the first time as a season, and it worked. Like within just a few days, we saw like, okay, this is going to work. So it was a process of at least 2 years, but then even after that, like Jimmy said, it's like we still have to go and play, and we had to move the pitching. Thomas will remember this. We had to move the pitching mound back, because Ranjit and John Sowden were having a pitch off where 42 feet away is just it got to the point where no one was hitting the ball because they were pitching so well. So we moved it back a bit. Tweaks like that have been happening for a while, but like you said, Grant, at some point, the iterative process really slowed down, and we got the game that we're looking for within just a few years. But yeah, the debate style, I think, was a huge part. I don't think this could have happened, even though I had ideas for a long time before this. It could not have happened without like a science speaker laboratory like University High School to make this really become a reality.
Excellent. Well, I think it's a good intro. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go back to the rules, which are on our website, 21ctownball.com. And we're just going to start from the top. So you guys can see that on your screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. And shout out to our friend Rylan Schubkagel for giving a better facelift than most plastic surgeons. Our website was quite hard to experience in the past, but this is wonderful. So having kind of a table of contents of our rules, for one, did not exist before. And that made it quite annoying to try and find which rules were which and where they were. So the first section deals with the pregame. Each team shall consist of 13 players, one of which being captain shall represent the team in every respect. Umpires shall be designated in a method agreeable to both captains to enforce these rules and to ensure fair play between the two teams. Before play commences, the captains shall agree upon and inform the umpires of the boundaries within which play shall take place. And finally, rule number 4, before play commences, the captains shall agree upon and inform the umpires of any variations to these rules that will be played by for the duration of the game. I mean, this is kind of baked in, and we don't really think about this one so much. And I would imagine this is more important for tournament level and exhibition type games that are not pickup games, right? Jones, how what anything we want to point out here in section 1?
let me actually address what you just said. Jimmy and Tommy, correct me, but when making this video and talking about these rules, I'm going to assume that we're not talking the context of pickup games, even though pickup games can or should or whatever follow these rules because that's the way the game's played. But I'm always envisioning this on a very like official context, whether it's a league within the context of a league or whether it's in the context of an exhibition game. Both of those are the place in which these rules should be followed and upheld. So can we keep that context, Grant, that these are the rules not necessarily for pickup games, because pickup games they can change the rules how they want, but this is how the game should be played on a more official context. What do you think? What do you guys think?
I agree.
I agree.
I
mean, this
agree.
is going to be something that we want to keep as a reference. So this is going to be for something that I would consider even like a professional style, league, if you will. What it should be when it gets to that point.
Very good. I don't know if anything else needs to be said about this first section.
Can I actually say one thing?
Go, Tommy.
I'd like to highlight rule number 4. I think one pillar of Townball is rule number 4. It really sets a precedent because similar to baseball, how every baseball field has different dimensions, every Townball field and every Townball team is going to have a different play style. Sometimes different teams would want to suggest different rules, and that can be laid out through number 4 of this section.
Right. And this also jives with Rule 54, which is that as long as both captains agree before a game begins, they can play a game excluding
Let me read it.
any
let me
rules that
read
you
it to
want.
Rule 54 says any rule outlined in this document can be spontaneously modified during or before a game if agreed upon by both captains. However, unless otherwise agreed upon by both captains, each rule in this document shall be considered binding during gameplay and should be followed in all cases, and no rule changes can be made if not agreed upon by both captains. So yeah, to Tommy's point, part of Townball, the point is that you can spontaneously change the rules before a game if both captains agree, as long as the league allows that to happen. Wouldn't you agree, wouldn't you agree, Jimmy?
Yeah, that's also baked in. It has to be beforehand, or if something comes up in the middle of a game, has to be handled in that moment.
And agreed upon by both captains.
Correct.
All right.
Thanks, Tommy, for pointing that out.
Moving on to.
I also think just another thing too, real quick, Grant. Sorry to cut off there.
You're good.
I think when it comes to the context of this being an umpire's discussion as well, this is usually, except for extenuating circumstances, not a call made by the umpire, but like Jones said, made by the captains, informing the umpire of what they would like to do.
Right. The captains kind of have to take ownership in that case. Anything else before moving on to equipment? Okay. So this one's interesting because, again, this is very dependent on the fact of like official, like tournament league level play. I don't know if we've really budged on this in this context, but this is the dimensions of the equipment we use to play. Rather than reading all of this out, Jones, are there any worthwhile comments you want to make about maybe perhaps why the measurements are what they are for the ball that we use, the bats that we use? Like, is there anything notably different here than what's allowed in other bat and ball games, for example? What's the most prominent aspect of the equipment rules here?
I don't really have much to say. I personally would prefer to read them once, if you guys are okay with that.
Okay. I'll do that now.
Okay.
The ball shall consist of cork, rubber, yarn, and leather. The cork center shall be 1 inch in diameter, followed by a layer of rubber, so that the cork center and rubber together measure no less than 6 1/8 and no more than 6 3/8 inches in circumference. The cork and rubber core shall then be wrapped with yarn until the circumference measures no less than 9 3/8 and no more than 9.5 inches. The ball shall then be covered in one piece of leather stitched together so that it measures no less than 9 5/8 and no more than 9 7/8 inches in circumference, and weighs no less than 4 7/8 and no more than 5 1/8 avoirdupois ounces. Rule number 6, the bat shall be made of wood, the thickest part thereof not exceeding 8 1/5 inches in circumference, and shall be of any length so as to suit the batter. Number 7, fielder's gloves must measure no more than 3 inches in length from the base of the fingers to the tip, and no more than 8 inches in width from the side of the index finger closest to the thumb to the side of the pinky farthest from the same.
And I will say that that seventh rule is the one that we modified the wording of. We will update that soon. So if you're curious what those updates will be, we were allowing for bigger gloves, obviously, because that was originally a vintage baseball size mitt, but we're going to make it a little bit closer to what Major League allows for gloves. Even though that's not something I necessarily want, but I think that I got overruled in that. And also, with respect to the rules, you can, if you're into the numerology, there's a lot of Fibonacci reasons for the numbers that we chose for these dimensions.
Right, yeah. The Fibonacci sequence is going to keep coming up in a lot of different places. Anywhere there's a numerical aspect of the game, you can pretty much bet it's coming from the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio.
That's correct.
Yep. Jimmy or Tommy, anything to add here?
No, we have pretty straightforward numbers with this one. So hopefully those changes come to fruition.
Cool. Okay. The playing field. Rule 8. The playing field shall be a square marked out by 5 cylindrical wooden stakes inserted upright into the ground, each of which being at least 2 feet in length and 1 inch in diameter. The key word there being at least. Rule 9. First stake shall be 42 feet from the batting point. Second stake, 68 feet from first. Third stake, 110 feet from second. Fourth, 110 feet from third. And the home stake, 110 feet from fourth. All laid out in right angles from the batting point to home in a counterclockwise direction. The pitching line, rule number 10, the pitching line shall be 52 feet from and parallel to the line formed by the batting point and first stake on the same side of said line as the second stake. And this is a good time, I think, for me to just pull up an image of the field. So while I'm doing that, talk amongst yourselves.
And by the way, that's one thing that I have needed to tell Rylan is we need to get the images onto this site as well, because like you said, Grant, it's easier to visualize this if you have an image in front of you.
And for rule number 8, we're hoping to make a quick little change. Still under construction to see if we can get to that point, but we'd like to reduce the 1 inch diameter of the stake to 3/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
Seemed to be what worked best. And as for rule number 9, I think a quick tip that helps with accuracy is using a tape measure, obviously, and spray paint to make the field look more proper and more accurate.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. There's a science to putting this field together that I don't know if that's something we need to talk about in this video, but we have a whole process that we go through that involves the Pythagorean theorem to make sure the angles are actually right. Because just eyeballing it works for a pickup game, but for a more formal exhibition game, we actually have documented this is what you do: step 1, step 2, step 3 to put it together.
Yeah, I have memorized that exact field setup instruction list now that I don't even need to refer to it anymore when I set up the field.
Yeah.
Basically, to very quickly summarize that process, the first stake in the field I want to put in the ground when I'm setting up the field is fifth stake or home. And then I have a friend run 110 feet out just in any direction, but usually I'm trying to make the line from fourth to fifth parallel to the location we're playing at, whether that has a fence or a road, or what have you, or if nothing else, just north, south, east, west boundaries. And then once they have fourth stake planted, the location of third stake is determined by the use of Pythagorean theorem, where third stake's location is where one roll of tape that's measuring 110 feet meets another roll of tape, which is meant to be the hypotenuse of a triangle, if you can imagine, from fifth stake, fourth stake, third stake, and then like a line from third to fifth as the side. And of course, we know from math about a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The length of that hypotenuse side is equal to 110 squared plus 110 squared, which is roughly 155 feet and
155.6, I think it is. Yeah, 6 inches. And just while Grant's talking, and while putting up third stake is the time in which we put up the batting point. That's how me and Chuck do it anyway, because that way we can fix that. Why? Because the batting point goes through that hypotenuse that you're making from fifth to third stake.
Yep. And yeah, and there's another way to check the batting point later as well, after you've gotten all the stakes put out. But yeah, so that's the true location of third stake. And then the batting point, I don't remember how many feet from fifth that is, but it's within that smaller 42 by 42 square, that brown shaded area on the bottom there. So once third, fourth, and fifth are marked, then it's pretty easy to get second stake at that point, because you're just taking 110 feet from two rolls of tape from fifth stake and third stake, and wherever those meet is just wherever second stake is. And then first stake is just 42 feet from fifth on that line. And there you go. And this is where you find your that backup way to confirm that your batting point is in fact in the right place. And the way you do that is on that line from second to third stake, walking, I guess it would be 42 feet from second stake, as if you're like walking toward third. As soon as you get to 42 feet, you should be even lengthwise with the batting point. And then you just keep, like, someone holds the tape in its place to form a right angle, and you just keep walking the tape down to the batting point, and it should be 110 feet, because it's the 42 feet and the 68 feet that you see here in the upper right side, but it's just the mirror opposite of that. And then that should just land you right where you would have sprayed the spot. And then from there, you can get your pitcher's line 52 feet from the batting point, 16 feet from the line between second and third, and then you're basically done. So, sounds complicated. It's not. Moving on to here. Any other points about the playing field? I mean, this, just historically, this is the most original part of Townball. Everything else is borrowed from somewhere else. This is the most creative aspect of the game. Unless someone corrects me.
That is correct. It's the most original, I would say, because yeah, it's the only part of the game that doesn't have a direct stealing from other games in historic versions of baseball. The Fibonacci sequence was never used as the basis for any other game, bat and ball game.
Right. Jimmy, any comments here?
I usually don't end up setting the field up, so I don't have much to speak on, unfortunately.
No worries. Innings. Rule 11. The teams shall alternate between batting and fielding. Each time the teams switch between batting and fielding, and then from fielding to batting, this will constitute an inning. Number 12. Each inning will consist of only one out per side. Rule 13. If at any point at the end of an inning, one of the teams is leading the other by at least 5 runs after having scored at least 8, or has scored a total of at least 13 runs, then that team shall be considered the winner. In the case that both teams have exceeded 13 runs in the same inning, then the team with the higher score at the end of that inning wins. In the case that there is a tie at the end of that inning, the game will continue one inning at a time until there is no longer a tie at the end of an inning, and the team with the highest score at the end of that inning wins. Thoughts on this section of the rule set?
No thoughts on my end. I mean, it can be a little hard to explain to people, but it's pretty straightforward once you get there.
I mean, as far as an inning goes, I mean, there's no difference between this and baseball, except that
Sorry, my
baseball
bad.
has.
I was thinking ahead to the scoring. My bad. Ignore me.
That's okay. Yeah, the inning, there is an inning limit in baseball. We don't really need one. We've never really needed one because the game is won by the runs and not by a set number of innings. Good luck. Hopefully you have more runs than the other team by the time that 9 innings is over. Tommy, can you speak to the freedom that winning by runs instead of winning by um how much you get in 9 innings, like that the freedom that provides the losing team in that sense? Like there's a sense in which you can be down by so many runs, but you like kind of always have a chance to bounce back and turn things around instantly. Whereas with mainstream sports and with the way that baseball innings are set up, you kind of once you lose momentum, you just kind of feel bad, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, how does Townball kind of counteract
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And to kind of start out by giving an example on the flip side, we've had teams win the game in one inning before. To where, yeah, a game can be less than 30 minutes. And that's kind of the beauty of it is, let's say your best hitters are already out. It's the last inning and you just need to get a few guys on just to score some runs. That is entirely in the realm of possibility. If defense is not on its A game, if you've got some solid runners, anything can happen. And that's, again, I will keep drilling this idea that anyone can be the MVP on your team at any given moment, despite the skill level and what you would see in, for example, a baseball game. And
Yeah.
that can just, again, that can happen at any inning. Um, and that's what makes this game so interesting.
Yeah, if I can add to that, Grant. And this kind of goes more directly to your question, Grant, about how this brings freedom. So for me, if my team's down 7-0, right, that's when I start rising up. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna lose this game. Because once you score 8 runs, 8-0 is a win. So if you have a defense that is strong enough or that can rally and say, like, we will not let this person score, if you can just hold them long enough to where your offense can catch up and score 4 runs, suddenly that pushes the other team. They have to score 9 runs because you have to win by 5 runs. Because a 9-4 is a win as opposed to 8-4. 8-4 is not a win. You have to win by 5. So what this does, it gives a lot more power to the defense in a game that's very offensive. Like baseball, it's kind of like the defense controls the game, right? If you get a hit, you're like, oh, good, I got lucky. The ball dropped in. So in Townball, though, it's so easy to get on base. It's so like there's so much more control in the offense than in baseball, which is one of the beauties of the game. So to counteract that, if you if you have a very strong defense, right, you can say, okay, we're not going to let them score after these 7 runs, and give your offense a chance to get caught up. So it brings a very different flavor of balance between offense and defense that baseball just doesn't allow, because this game has so much more freedom. And we'll talk about that as we get into other rules, but the amount of freedom comes down to the fact that you have so many options, both offense and defense, but especially the offense, unlike in baseball, where in baseball, you only have one option. Pretty much just hit the ball out of the park. That's what Major League Baseball has become. I'm exaggerating a bit, but to some degree, that's the fact, is that the number of options in baseball for the offense is so much more limited than in Townball.
Any other comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I like I like what Jones said about the defense being more in control, but I think the nice part about it is that with good, solid defense, you can put away a team, you know? But the thing I like about it is that you can do it, you can double up almost too when you get towards the end of your lineup. You know, you can get your good hitters down there, get them all in, score a couple runs, and you reach the top of your lineup and you're at the beginning again. You can keep it rolling, you know, and really pour it on all in one inning.
Right. And we'll get to that here in a second later when we talk about how the batting order works. Quite possibly one of my favorite rules in the entire game. If there's no other input on here, I will move on to the section on rounds. Two quick rules here. Rule 14. Each team shall, when fielding, clearly designate one of its players to pitch. The fielding team can change pitchers at any time during the game. The rest of the fielders must all remain in the playing area for every pitch while fielding. Rule 15. Each team shall, when batting, send their players in turn to the batting point to bat. A batter is said to have completed his at-bat if he has either advanced to first stake or is out. Each time every member on a team has completed his at-bat shall constitute a round. No batter shall have more than one at-bat per round. One might read this, particularly Rule 14, and think, why is it necessary to define this part? Well, it's because there's no foul territory, and one can get creative about what the field of play includes or excludes, especially because you can play Townball pretty much anywhere where there's at least like 300 by 300 feet of grass. So I'm wondering if it's the same. I believe it's the same call and the same recording, but I think the connection wasn't great, but then it came back on. So I'm assuming this is not a new meeting and it's still the same. So we're good. Sorry. Okay. Got it. What were you gonna say, Tommy?
I'm uh, hoping to trick the batter to not know where the ball's coming from. Obviously, when your eyes off the ball, that's always bad news. So an errant pitch could definitely hurt someone. So this rule is pretty necessary at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. In more cheeky moments on pickup games, I've had friends who have tried to do this, not really realizing it's a rule because we've never had to say it's a rule. But once they anything that's not explicitly prohibited is tried uh, is tried to be performed. And that's why this rule exists. Is that way you don't have this multiple pitcher situation when you don't know who has the ball and you try and confuse the batter and cause chaos and potential injuries. So stake running.
And then not to say that you can't try and deceive the batter in the pitching process, you can try and do a hidden ball trick. where the designated pitcher goes up to the pitching line but doesn't have the ball. So there are ways that you can still add trickery into it while not compromising player safety.
Right.
Yeah, I need to say something about Rule 15 just so it's clear. I realized that it wouldn't be clear. So can I jump in? You guys all done with that part?
Yeah.
Okay, so Grant would probably tell people, hey, in Townball you can change the batting order. The rules never say, hey, in Townball you can change the batting order because of what someone just said. I forget who. I think it was Jimmy. He said, or maybe it was Tommy. If it's not explicitly said in the rules, then for the most part, except for something like trying to hit someone with a bat or something like that, if there's something not explicitly stated in the rules, then you are allowed to do it. That's how the game is designed. It's not like, oh, you did something that no one's thought of before. That's not allowed. It's like, oh, you've done something that no one's thought of before. Good for you. You're being creative. You thought of something new, right? So for that reason, the rules don't say you can do this. The rules simply say you can't do this. They tell you what you can't do. Anything else you can do. So since it says no batter shall have more than one at bat per round, what that's saying is that you can't bat twice in a round, implying that the batting order can be different every time you have a round. That's what's implied by saying what you can't do. And then also from an umpire standpoint, it says a batter is said to have completed his at bat if he has either advanced to first stake or is out. What that means is if you're batting and then your teammate gets out on the bases, you haven't finished your at bat yet. Just like in baseball, you come up the next inning when it's your turn. You come up. You have to bat right away after that point with a new count, just like in baseball.
Unless you've given yourself up as a runner. Basically, if you leave the batter's box, then you've become a stake runner. You're no longer a batter.
That's right. If you're in your process of running to first stake, then obviously you used up your at bat. But although it does say in this rule, if they have either advanced to first stake, Jimmy, or is out. So I don't remember what we decided on, or if it's in the rules even, as far as when exactly that decision is made that person became a runner. Because you just mentioned when the person leaves the box. This rule says when you reach first stake. So I don't remember if it's spelled out later in the rules. If not, we have to.
I think that's what it was. We were gonna check it out. We had said we were gonna look into it. We never did. But I think the part of it is that once you leave the batter's box, you can go back to it. But when you're not in the batter's box, you are considered a stake runner because the batter's box is like a point of safety. Like it's like a stake where you're not able to get out.
Yeah, I don't think we ever actually decided that, if I recall correctly.
I don't know if it's actually codified or not, and maybe this section on the stake running will help, but the way my understanding is on how to play that is that the runner who just got to first can go back to the box and resume their at bat with the same number of strikes if they had any. Anytime they want, as long as it's before the next person in their batting order steps into the box.
Yeah, that's correct. But what Jimmy and I are talking about is in the case that the inning ends.
Let's say you got a guy going from second to third, and he's in a pickle. He's going back and forth. Somebody chases him down, right? And you were batting. You had 2 strikes on you, right? What we're talking about is while that guy's getting chased down, let's say you were going from the batter's box to first. During that process, while you've left the box, but before you hit first stake, your teammate gets pegged out, right? Does that constitute you having to come back and bat again at the start of the next inning, or have you given up your turn at batting because you left the box?
Oh, yes. I wonder.
Historically, we've always played it that, at least to my memory, we've always played it that once you leave that box, if one of your teammates gets out, you have essentially forfeited your at bat, and the next inning you cannot start. But if you didn't leave the box, then you have to start.
Yeah, and I think Jimmy's right. I don't think we have that in the rules anywhere. Tommy, is that
Yeah.
how we've been playing?
We have been playing like that. To agree, I don't think we've made that an official rule. And to add on even another layer to this complexity, what constitutes you as a person? The bat or yourself?
That's
A
an
lot of
extension of
players, yeah,
yourself in that regard.
yes,
So if your bat's in there, but
uh,
you're not, you're in the box.
correct. Which I don't think is an official rule in terms of this
Mm.
scenario.
I think it is. It's later.
It is. Oh, it's
Yeah,
later. Okay.
Yeah,
it
'cause
is later. Just
there's
the
batting.
question, though, I think
Yeah.
the main question that Jimmy is asking, I think, is a valid one because according to the rule 15 as written, it makes it sound like you have to have reached the base. So we'll have to clarify that.
Yeah.
We just add the word attempted to.
Yeah.
Stake running. Rule 16. A run is scored when a member of the batting team legally advances through the stakes from the batting point to the home stake, making physical contact with each. 17. Stake runners must advance or retreat from stake to stake in succession. Any advancement to a stake made by a stake runner shall be nullified if a previous runner thereafter retreats and makes physical contact with that stake. Rule 18. Stake runners in physical contact with a stake that he has legally progressed to shall be considered safe. A stake runner shall not be considered safe on a stake that a previous runner has not yet progressed to. So there's probably a more simple way of summarizing this. It's like you if you want to retreat back to a prior stake you have touched, you can, but that's only if a runner behind you has not already touched it and gone there themselves. And the touching part is important because theoretically the stake runners can be anywhere they want in the entire infield. They just have to remember, like, in between which stakes they're theoretically existing in from a touching standpoint. Because if you don't have to run in a straight line, so you can go out into the field, you can come back in. I've seen it happen before where someone gets a double, and on their way to second, first stake falls over, which means they have to restake it and get it back up. But it's dangerous to go back to first because they're fielding the ball back in, and the person might get out. Whereas it would be a safer option to actually just run straight back into the batter's box, assuming it's not the out situation elsewhere in the field we just described a minute ago. That's actually legal. So, any comments there?
The only comment I want to make is that notice it doesn't say there's no baselines. It just doesn't say that there's any baselines.
Which implies that there are not.
Right.
As long as it's still on the field of play, though.
Yeah.
Any points
All right.
about this one?
No. If you can edit me out because I have to leave right now.
No, you're good. Thanks, Tommy.
All right. All right. Thanks, guys. Wish I could
Tommy.
stay here longer, though. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Valentine's.
No further comments on the stake running section.
Nope.
All right, pitching. 19. A pitch is a legal toss or throw in the batter's direction. For every batter that the pitcher faces, the pitcher must wait until the batter is ready before throwing the first pitch. I have a lot of comments on this one, which I will reserve until after reading Rule 20. Rule 20. For every pitch, the pitcher may not make physical contact with the ground on the batting point side of the pitching line until after he releases the ball. So theoretically, you could like get a running start and jump over the pitching line and release the ball before you land, thereby reducing the distance you have to throw, but then also risking accuracy at the same time. I have seen people who are good at this and they do it and it works and they are absolute animals. But this rule lets them do that and it's kind of fun. Um, Jimmy and Jones, I'll let you say some things here, but I definitely have some things to say about Rule 19.
If I can step in, if remember the history for rule number 19 was kind of born out of an argument because somebody had stepped into the batter's box and the pitcher threw right away and it like I said, I wasn't ready. Well, you stepped into the box, is a whole discussion back and forth, and we just kind of figured that the best way to solve that in the moment was verbally asking whether or not the batter was ready, because then at that point everybody knew, yeah, the batter's ready.
Right. Yeah, and that's actually the part I wanted to talk about was what constitutes a ready batter. So regional differences in town balls so far have led to different expressions of readiness. I don't believe this is something that needs to be codified. So I think we let Connor keep his at bat just as a concession, but that was an interesting highlight there of that. Yeah, one sec, Jones. I gotta do some.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. As Grant mentioned, the rule is very vague. It's supposed to be vague on purpose, right? It says for every batter the pitcher faces, the pitcher must wait until the batter is ready before throwing the first pitch. Of course, the immediate question is, how does the pitcher know if the batter is ready? And I think Jimmy has set the right standard for this, is that it's the umpire's job to decide whether or not the batter's ready. So the way Jimmy does it, which I think is beautiful, he verbally asks the batter every single time, batter ready? Play ball. Or batter ready? Batter up. Or something to that effect. What Grant is referring to is a pickup scenario, because even though we had an all-star game, we didn't have any umpires, which is not how the game's supposed to be played, because the rules say there's supposed to be umpires, right? So if there are no umpires, then of course the teams have to agree, what does it mean for the batter to be ready? But every single region, every single game, whatever level you're playing, they're going to have a different decision as to what it means for the batter to be ready. But in a league game, it's the umpire's responsibility to make that decision. Is the batter ready? Case closed. A lot of these rules are vague because the umpire is the one who's supposed to ensure fair play. He has to make the decisions. Did the person hold on to the ball onto the ball until the conclusion of the play? Those kinds of things that are very loosely defined are up to the umpire to make that decision. If you don't give the umpire that kind of freedom, the game doesn't have any fluidity by which it can be spontaneously, no, this is this case because this is a judgment call that the umpire has. It gives the umpire a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more freedom, a little bit more authority to make those decisions. But as far as the pitcher having to ask the batter whether or not they're ready, that's not written into the rules. That's something that's been played according to, like Grant mentioned, regional way of doing things. But of course, because we had an all-star game in which we had no umpire, we probably should have decided that beforehand. We just didn't think of it, like Grant mentioned. Because I didn't realize that we had different we didn't even realize that there were different regional ways of playing until Connor said, I thought the pitcher had to ask. Well, actually, the rules don't say the pitcher has to ask. The rules say the batter has to be ready. So in that moment, actually, I defended Connor because the rule says if the batter's ready. It's not whether the pitcher thinks he's ready. Connor said he wasn't ready, then he wasn't ready. That was my argument on the field at the time.
Right, and when you haven't, and when you're not playing a game that has an obvious umpire, or if you're used to playing games that have not been officially umpired, everyone kind of self-umpires, and that's just a really easy way to make sure that self-umpiring goes well. However, this is a context in which that third party would have been a lot more necessary. So, that I think that's just a really good example of demonstrating the reason behind why we have things in this way. Um, any other comments from either of you before the batting section?
Yeah. Three main things: player standpoint, a league standpoint, and a pickup standpoint. I think that when it comes down to pickup games, it's vitally important to make sure that whatever rules are going to be played by, they need to be done with beforehand. But things come up, right? And so you're going to forget things. You're human, right? Making sure that whatever happens, the captains come to an agreement about what are we going to do about this one instance, and then going forwards, that scenario popping up again. So when it comes to any pickup play where there are no umpires, that's fine. Townball can be played that way. Townball started that way. There were no umpires to start with Townball. Um, and pickup games can still be played that way, with arbitration between the captains, and it's still a great way to play the game. But when it comes to league play, having an umpire take that responsibility and take that point of contention away from teams, because it can be something that can really cause problems when teams, there's any type of wiggle room in those things. Having a person who says, no, it is going to be this way, that does not have a vested interest in the game, is something that is absolutely necessary. So in this regard here, when it comes to pitching, the rule says the pitcher must wait until the batter is ready. It does not say they ask. It doesn't say the batter has to verbally say that they're ready either. As an umpire, a lot of times when I'm with people on a individual standpoint, some people don't like to verbally say that they're ready. It gets them out of their zone. And as an umpire, having to discern what that looks like is difficult. You know, um, sometimes it's as simple as a player getting into the batter's box, and as soon as they look up at the pitcher, that's when they're ready. It can be something where they do a verbal nod. Sometimes they let you know they're ready the moment they step into the box. And having that understanding of the players on an individual level is important too. And as
So
for myself, from my player standpoint, I like to stand in the box for a second and get a lay of the land of how the defense is playing. I don't like to, the instant both feet land in the box, I gotta go. I'll turn my back to the pitcher, I'll turn everywhere. Once I get set, though, I'm good. And so having an umpire ask me when I'm ready takes that away from the pitcher, who's going to try and hurry me because he wants to have his play style. So it's as an umpire, it's our jobs to make sure that we are understanding the players, understanding the game, and understanding the situation.
yes, I totally agree with Jimmy. That's exactly how it should be. And that's actually how it's done in Major League Baseball, too, that the umpire will hold their hand up as they see the batter digging in. But the umpires usually have a good sense of the players. So when he's like, okay, if that batter's ready, play ball. He doesn't ask the batter, are you ready? He points to the pitcher and says, play ball. That batter is ready. I agree with Jimmy 100%.
Yeah, and I really like that batters' kind of individual approaches are catered to by the umpire being that external kind of verification on the outside of the pitcher batter dynamic there. Because I'm like you, Jimmy, I really do try to read the room, read the field for at least a good 10 seconds before getting in there. And I also like to mess with the pitcher with timing and other things like that as well. And that's a big part of being a batter too. So that's great. Rules for batting. Number 21. The batter may attempt to advance to first stake at any time after at least one ball has been pitched to him, whether or not the ball has been hit. This is the stealing first base rule. A batter who leaves the batter's box before the first pitch leaves the pitcher's hand may not legally advance to the first stake. Rule 22. If a batter attempts to hit the ball more than once for any given pitch, or if the batter attempts to hit the ball after the ball has stopped moving, the batter is out. So there's some fun. I think there's some fun dialogue there in 22. Jones, I actually remember back when Rule 21 did not specify what constituted the beginning of a pitch.
Yeah.
And we edited this a couple of years back to be more clear. Is the pitch when the ball leaves the pitcher's hand? Is it when it crosses the plane of the zone? You know, how early can they run to first base and it be legal? And that's when we decided it's as soon as the pitch leaves the pitcher's hand. So we have a friend named Artashis. You know exactly where I'm going with this. It's probably a signature move of his at this point. I don't see anybody else do this very often, and so therefore he gets the title of being the main person who does this. There will be pitches or at bats where as soon as the ball leaves the pitcher's hand on the first pitch, he just bolts for first stake. It's an incredibly risky move because then the zone is completely undefended. But on the off chance that the ball is outside and it doesn't hit the zone, Artashis probably gets first base every time. So that's a liberty he has as a result of this rule. What I would like some clarity on is Rule 22 in the part where if the batter attempts to hit the ball after the ball has stopped moving, the batter is out. I'm not sure if that's applying to a ball that has not hit the ground yet in the pitch or after it has.
I'll step in, Grant.
Yeah, go for it, Jimmy.
So these were, again, play-tested scenarios. These rules didn't exist until they became a problem. So for hitting a ball twice, let's say, right? I think I was actually there for both of these moments that really made these necessary. The first time was a ball that I think got hit up in the air and was coming back down in the zone again, and the batter attempted to hit it again, and that becomes a player safety issue because somebody's going to try and catch that dang ball, and now you're swinging a live bat near a person trying to catch a ball who's looking up, not paying attention. And then again, the second one where it's on the ground once it stops moving, something along the lines of a ball that got hit straight into the dirt and died almost immediately. And then, trying to golf swing a Townball off the ground while somebody's going for the ball. It's entirely player safety oriented, making sure that the batter has done what he's done. He's attempted to hit the ball. He's made contact with it. You get that one chance. Once you hit the ball, now it's the defense's job to get the ball. So bringing a bat being swung into that scenario is a huge red flag when it comes to safety. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of everybody on the field.
If I can clarify something, Jimmy, that second part, or if the batter attempts to hit the ball after the ball has stopped moving, in Major League Baseball, this is true too. Like if a pitcher pitches the ball and like it kind of slips out of his hand and starts actually rolling to the batter is allowed to come out of the box, move up, and just hit it, right? But the thing is, and no one should get in the way of that because the batter is still a pitch that can hit the ball. But the thing is, once the ball has stopped moving, if the batter can still hit it, right? Again, like you said, it's a safety issue, right? No one's going to want to get the ball. If the ball has stopped moving, the batter is still going to wait to hit the ball. And meanwhile, the runners could be running around the bases, which is really unfair to the defense. So if the ball slips out of the pitcher's hand, the batter can go hit the ball, right? Even leaving the box to hit the ball, as long as the ball is still moving. But once it stops moving, they're not allowed to hit it again. Otherwise, you're out. And for Rule 21, yeah, like you said, yeah, right before I submitted these rules to the board, I was actually making some last minute edits, and we put that one in about leaving the pitcher's hand because it was unclear as far as what it meant for the pitcher to be pitched. Oh, and also I want to say that this is one of the exceptions to my own personal rule that I don't say what the person's allowed to do. But because it's so ingrained in us in baseball that you can't advance the first stake until you actually hit the ball, I actually made an exception in this case and wrote it explicitly that the batter may attempt to advance the first take at any time after at least one ball is pitched to him. Partly because we still have to mention that you can't do it unless one ball has been pitched to you. So I guess the rule probably should say the batter may not attempt to run the first take without having hit the ball until at least one ball has been pitched to him, that kind of a thing. But this explicitly lets everyone know that in Townball it's very different from baseball in that sense.
Which I think that is necessary, especially for new people. One of the most common things that I have seen with every new player is the aha moment on their like second or maybe even their third at bat where they are like, wait, oh yeah, I can steal first base. I don't have to wait for my pitch. And then they try it. But they don't usually pick it up on their first at bat unless they're really savvy or they're just deathly afraid of pitches and they just want to get out of there. But yeah,
Usually it happens they get zoned on their first at bat because they're taught that, if it's not your pitch, just take it. And they'll get zoned on like the second pitch because it was right down the middle, but they wanted it high and away.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, that's right. And then the second time's like, I'm not waiting around for that. Let me get on first.
This is why I have my reputation for being such a froggy hitter, is because I love hitting the ball, but I have been zoned enough times to know that in Townball, the zone is so sneaky. It's so sneaky. Waiting for your pitch completely underestimates just how the ball can get to the zone more easy than you think. And so my strategy as a runner is to swing at anything that is within like 2 feet of the zone in any direction. And eventually I'll have to steal, and I always have that option as my last resort. But I hate getting zoned so badly that I have to protect that thing, and then that ends up breeding a certain kind of hitting style that takes advantage of the fact that we have no foul territory as well. And I actually think that actually churns out better hitters than a like invisible strike zone scenario at high speeds where the target is so small, or at least feels small because you can't see its outlines. That baseball just kind of trains you to like within 0.3 seconds, if it's not down the middle, you don't really usually need to swing at it. Unless you're dealing with the crazy good pitcher. So I like mechanically like what Townball does to the batter in that sense. And I think it makes him a little more well-rounded, actually. So yeah, so speaking of the zone, here are the rules about the zone. Number 23, there shall be a 14-inch wide by 24.5-inch high rectangular zone facing the pitcher placed 5 feet behind the batting point, the bottom of which being 14.5 inches from the ground, for which, if the ball is legally pitched into without first hitting the ground, a fielder or the batter, or in the case, the ball would have hit the zone, except that the batter interfered with the pitch by causing his body to obstruct the path of the ball, then the batter is out. 24, if a batter attempts to advance to first stake without hitting the ball, and if the ball is pitched into the zone before the batter reaches first stake, then the batter is out. This is the risk I was describing just a minute ago from the Artashis steal on the first pitch move. Number 25, if the batter hits the zone with his bat while batting, then the batter is out. For 26, if a batter attempts to hit a pitched ball after it hits part of the zone, including the leg or the stand, or after it passes the plane formed by the zone, then the batter is out. So that prohibits like swinging and hitting the ball from behind the zone, for example, since it's past the plane already. That is a safety issue with the catcher. Once it's hit the leg or the stand, it's an angle it's bouncing off of from which you are trying to hit it that is not one that's controlled by the pitcher and other things like that. So, who wants to go first to talk about this stuff?
I don't have any of
The
that.
zone. I was going to say the zone used to be bigger.
Yeah.
It used to be a little bit bigger, and then Jones realized that um, the dimensions that it was at. I'm trying to explain it the right way. So basically, let's use baseball terms, right? The zone was the same size as a baseball zone, right? Not
Yeah.
exactly, but the same size, right?
It,
And
it
then we
was the same. It was
realized,
the same width. It was the same width as baseball.
and because it's a physical zone, and we're using long story short, it was actually bigger than we intended it to be because only a small little amount of the ball had to nick the zone for it to count as hitting the zone. So to make it the size that we wanted, including the ball, the width of the ball, it actually got us shrunk a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah, so it actually used to be even harder to hit.
Yeah, we took an inch and a half off all four sides of the zone because an inch and a half is really close to half the size of half the diameter of the ball. So when the zone was as big as it was, technically, Jimmy, that was the size of a Major League Baseball strike zone as far as width is concerned, because in Major League Baseball, only a part of the ball has to go over the plate. And I personally don't agree with that. I think the center of the ball has to go over the plate. And so by making the zone smaller, that forces the center of the ball to go over the Fibonacci zone, the invisible Fibonacci zone, the golden rectangle that's not actually there. That's the actual zone for Townball. And the center of the ball has to go through the Fibonacci zone. In order for that to happen, only a part of the ball has to touch the physical zone for the center of the ball to go through the Fibonacci zone. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes. The
So,
actual
so,
size of
so,
the zone, if there was no physical zone, the Fibonacci zone would be,
yes.
and so the center of the ball has to go through that preferred size of a zone. But to make sure that we could actually physically see that happening, the physical zone has to be a little bit smaller
Yes.
so that the center of the ball will still pass through that invisible zone and
Yes.
hit the physical zone.
Yes. And that's why the numbers don't look Fibonacci when you read them. But if you add an inch and a half to all four sides, suddenly you get the Fibonacci numbers, cut in half, by the way, of 27 and I forget the other one. But that 24, was it 20? Was it 24 and a half? I can't remember.
Yeah, 24.5 inch high,
Yeah,
14 inch wide.
that makes 27 by what? By 17.
You're adding an inch and a half on all sides.
Yeah.
So
20.
that'd be 26 by 15.5.
Yeah. So that if you no, you have to add 3 inches to each, I think. Let's not worry about the details because I can't do math in my head right now. But if you were to add if an inch and a half on each one while I'm talking, by the way, you would get numbers that if you multiply by 2, you have Fibonacci. For example, 34 divided by 2, I think is where that 14 comes from.
Right. It's the ratios are all the same, which is what matters.
Yeah.
Comments about rules 24 through 26?
Mhm.
Nothing there? Okay. Yeah, the hitting the zone with your bat one, I mean, it's very simple and obvious when it happens, but it can be quite annoying, especially for people who have a big backswing. Like that one gets them a lot. So it trains you to kind of tighten up your follow through on a backswing. Makes you a little more quick, actually, which probably aids, how far the ball travels when you hit it. The
It
batter's
used to be worse
box.
when the zone was made of PVC. When you'd swing and hit it, the thing would explode.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice that we have metal ones now.
Yeah.
The batter's box. Rule 27. There shall be an 8 by 5 foot rectangular batter's box measured 5 feet behind and 4 feet on either side of the batting point, for which a batter or stake runner who is touching the ground there within, whether with his body or with his bat, shall be considered safe. This is the point about Tommy highlighted earlier, what constitutes the batter's like person. Rule 28. Stake runner may not retreat to the batter's box after a new batter has entered there within. We briefly mentioned that earlier. Rule 29. If a fielder enters the batter's box at any time during a pitch while the batter is in the batter's box before the ball hits the zone, passes the plane formed by the zone, hits the batter, is hit by the batter, or comes to a complete stop, then the batter shall be awarded an automatic home run, he himself scoring along with any other stake runners who may be on stake at the time. I'm very curious to see, like, to hear about the case that made this rule a rule, because I have never seen this happen even one time ever.
Thankfully, because the person trying to get the ball would be dead.
I think it had to do with somebody who was bunting. Like, we knew the exact person who it was. They never swung ever, and they always bunted it. And so we were getting really, really close. And then it became an issue of like, well, first off, now the ball can't even get to the zone because you're in the way. And second off, what if he does swing? Like, we need to have a set distance that you can be.
Right, because you risk getting hit.
We don't want the fielders to be standing in the batter's box while they're hitting.
Yeah.
Seems to just go back to the safety point that has continually been made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Safety issue.
Yeah.
By the way, for the zone, I just went back and did the numbers. The Fibonacci zone is 17 by 27.5, which is half 34 and half 55.
It was bothering you, wasn't it?
It was. You just have to take 3 inches from the 17 to get the 14. Take 3 inches from the 27.5, you get the 24.5.
Well, right. If it's 4 sides and you're splitting evenly the gap on the left and right side and the top and the bottom, 1.5 inches on all sides is technically 3 inches off the length and 3 inches off the width.
Yeah, but the point is that the 34 and the 55, that's where the Fibonacci numbers are for the zone.
Right. Yep. Runouts. We got 6 rules with this one. Rule 30. A batter or stake runner that is hit by the ball while not safe is out. 31. A stake runner tagged by a fielder with his glove possessing the ball while he is not safe is out, provided that the fielder maintains possession of the ball until the conclusion of the play. This is why an umpire is very important to have. Number 32. If 2 runners occupy the same stake, then neither is considered safe. Number 33. If a stake runner intentionally makes contact with 2 stakes at once, he is out, which is interesting because that implies you could do that unintentionally. Rule 34. If a stake runner or batter exits the agreed upon playing area while stake running, he is out, which I think is just a really funny thing to happen. Number 35. If a batter or stake runner intentionally handles the ball while in play, he is out. Thoughts?
I think it's important to talk about number 30, that it does not state that it has to be thrown or anything like that by the defense. A hit ball that hits the stake runner also gets that stake runner out.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it also doesn't say that you have to be hit by a ball that was hit, right? Either the flip side as well, which implies that you can throw the ball at the runner and get them out. And indeed, you can do that in Townball, even though the rules don't say that, because there's no rule against it. So yes, you can throw the ball at the runners to get them out.
My favorite example of Rule 30 in the expansiveness of what it includes in the fact that it literally just means hit by the ball for any reason is I was playing a pickup game here in Michigan, I think sometime later last year in 2024. Somebody hit a pop fly, which fell right on them before they hit first base. They pegged themselves out with their own hit. It was quite hilarious. I don't know if I'll ever see that again, but yeah, the the
That's right.
the birth and death cycle was about 3 seconds. So yeah, um, we've
And for
also
folks that say that getting pegged by the ball, it's too rough or anything like that, it shouldn't be part of the game. I wholeheartedly think it needs to be a part of the game. Um, I don't think you should try and cannon the ball into somebody's face from 2 feet away, but at the same time, it's understood that it may happen that you get hit with the ball. And this is coming from somebody who was hit in the face by a hardened mush ball when we were still using that to play. Um, I had gotten a hit. It had gone to somebody. They were maybe 20 feet away, and he threw the ball the second where I was running. And it was this larger than a softball ball that had been waterlogged and then dried, so it was like hard as plaster. And he threw it as hard as he could to get it second, and it just happened to smack me in the face.
I
It's a
remember
part of the
that.
game. Oh yeah, it sucked,
Hey,
but it's a part of the game.
yeah, if I can address this real quick, Grant. So just direct your attention to rule number 55. It says players shall use common sense in keeping safety, fair play, and good sportsmanship in mind when playing 21st century town ball. That is a rule. A player who is unruly or otherwise unreasonable, in the opinion of the umpire, should be asked to leave the playing area after being warned. Now, in Major League Baseball, if a pitcher tries to hit a batter when they're batting, right after a warning, they can be ejected for that. There is no reason why a league or an umpire cannot do the same thing. So, like Jimmy said, you might think that like, oh, pegging is dangerous. Why are we playing this game? Well, actually, baseball is much more dangerous, and the ball is harder than the town ball anyway. But besides that, if the umpire thinks that you're being ridiculous, like you're trying to hurt people, they have every right to eject you from the game, according to rule number 55. Wouldn't you agree, Jimmy?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. It's what's the intention? Is the intention trying to make a play and it was a hard play and you got hit by a ball a little hard? Or was it, I'm intentionally trying to cause harm? And there's a big difference, and usually the intent is very clear. And if not, as an umpire, you can give a warning. You can say you need to not do that again. And if it's egregious on the first go and you can tell, you can even eject immediately. It's at your discretion as an umpire what you think is needed for the safety of the players and for the for the goodness of the game.
Not only that, but it's usually not in the defense's advantage to try to peg someone hard, because if you miss, the ball's going to go really far. I'd say 90, maybe 95% of pegs I've ever seen in town ball are from 2 feet away, and the person backhands the ball and just tries to hit the runner to get them out, because that's the objective, not to try to wail on them. I mean, of course, it happens sometimes, but usually it's a longer distance case, in which case you don't really have that good aim anyway. And that happens in Major League Baseball. The runners get hit with the ball because you're trying to throw the runner out. So it's really not that much different when you actually play the game in town ball than what happens in baseball, in my opinion.
right. I mean, pegging ought to be legal because you want to still have those moments where, like, the catcher just hucks one all the way out to third, and it happens to hit the runner right before they get to the stake, and you get those like 1 in a million moments. As soon as pegging is made illegal, it's just like it takes the fun out of moments like that. There was a game we played in Cincinnati in June of 2024 where I accidentally pegged the same guy twice in a game because I was trying to throw ahead to the baseman, and it was in the same line of the throw. And both times I'm like both times those could have been uh out, but because we were with new people, they had expressed a desire to prohibit the allowing of pegging, which we had agreed upon beforehand. That was fine. But yeah, It's necessary in some moments, and it can really change the entire course of a game. But close range pegging is something that really ought to be done lightly and infrequently, um, or at least uh, not hard. Because to your point, Jones, you could miss, and the cost of missing is very great. So you might as well uh, only do it when there's like a basically 100% chance of it working, in close range circumstances at least. Um, I've learned from my errors. We recall the great historical super peg of 2022, which is on video. That I think I paid that guy like $3 just as like apology money, but he was fine. I think the reaction to the peg is more funny than the fact that it happened. If you watch the video, um, it's probably the closest thing I've seen to like a bench clearing moment in a tournament game. But yeah. Anyway, any other comments on the run out rules here?
Yes, I love it.
All right, moving on. Knocking the steak. Here, one sec. My roommate's coming in. I'm going to tell him we're doing a thing.
Do you want to take a break, Grant? Do you want to pick this up when Tommy's available? What do you think, Jimmy?
I'm okay either way. I mean, we're more than halfway done, so I'm okay to keep it going and just knock it out, or we can also call it a recess.
Your call, Grant.
We're most of the way there.
Okay.
And the rest of these aren't incredibly complicated. So I'd like the idea of it just for the sake of completing it to do that. And then if I watch it later and I find that there's some amendments we could probably make, we can do that later. But yeah. So Rule 36, knocking the stake. If, while in the process of advancing from stake to stake, a stake runner either dislodges or causes a stake to fall over, then the stake runner must set that stake back upright at the place where it was originally stationed before he may legally advance to the next stake. If a stake runner knocks over more than one stake during his progression from stake to stake, then he must return each stake to an upright position, starting with the stake that he last knocked over before resuming advancement, starting from the stake he last set back up. Number 37, if a stake falls over after a runner has already advanced to the next stake, then that stake will not be considered to have been knocked over by that runner.
So if I can step in on this one, rule number 36 from a practical standpoint as an umpire. In my time umpiring, I have taken over the responsibility of announcing a need for a restake. So that the responsibility, in essence, I don't want there to be any problems with the defending team calling out for a false restake or anything like that, trying to confuse the batter. And on the offensive side, they're not always paying attention either. I've taken over that responsibility to make sure that when it does happen, that it's clearly announced.
I love
to
that.
make sure that both teams know that it needs to happen.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things I think Jimmy's done a good job of setting precedents for. Because when I was writing these rules initially, when I put the draft together, I had envisioned an umpire doing exactly those kinds of things. Like even for illegal pitches as well, they have to somehow indicate to the runners and to the batters that was an illegal pitch, so that people can know what to do. Because otherwise, there's confusion. And knocking the stake over is no exception.
Yeah, this almost veers in a category of like unsportsmanlike conduct. If I don't know, it could be the opposing team distracting.
And as an umpire, trying to remove those potential problems to make sure that that doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. Trying to make sure that both teams are alerted to the need of it as soon as possible so that they can then do what they need to do in a way that is clear, consistent, and fair.
Yeah, exactly. But if I need to address two things though on rule number 36. First of all, if I'm on a defensive team, I would encourage my team to say stake, stake, stake like that to try to fool the other team because that's part of the trickery of Townball. But to Jimmy's point, the batter can simply look at the umpire and say, okay, that's a trick and move on. That's why the umpire is there because is the runner of sound mind enough to know that just because the other team is trying to trick them, they don't have to fall for the bait because they can either look back at the stake and look at the umpire and know immediately that the stake is not, it's a trick and move on. So I don't think that's not fair play, Grant, just to yell stake, 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 because that's part of the deception of Townball. And my second point, I guess I got 3 points. Second point is the reason that this rule exists is to prevent a runner from somehow giving their other runners an advantage by moving the stake to move them closer to each other. So there has to be some kind of uniformity each time a person comes to a stake. And thirdly, notice that the rules do not say that if you knock over a stake, that you have to go back and put that stake up. You actually don't have to put that stake up. You just have to put that stake up before you advance. So for example, if I'm running from first to second to third, and I knock over that second stake, and the defense gets the ball back to second stake before I can retreat to retake that stake, I can cut through the field and go back to first stake because it doesn't say I can't retreat before the stake is put back up. It just says I can't advance. So if I get safe on first, then when I get to second safely after the next pitch that is hit or something, I can then put the stake up and then advance to third base. Does that make sense, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's I think I briefly explained that exact scenario earlier in the call, where you, as long as you find a way to get back to that stake,
Yes.
it went through a prior stake. It doesn't matter which prior stake that is. I mean, heck, you could go back to the batter's box if the batter after you has not jumped in the box yet. Like you could have such an amazing hit that you get a triple, second stake falls over, you can't get back there safely, but the batter's box is closer and safer than second.
No, that is not.
No,
That's not.
you have to
That's not
advance.
true.
You have to advance. You can't go any further than one stake away. So if it's
Yeah.
second, you can go back to first, or in this case, you can't advance to third. But anytime you're going around the stakes, you have to do it in succession, one after another. You can't skip over one in either direction.
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay, my bad. So in the case that you get all the way to third, but second falls over, could you run
Before you reach
to?
third base, it
Yeah.
Before
is
you
your
reach
responsibility as a stake runner to restake that before you can advance. You can run around in the field if you want. You can go back to first.
But not
Those
the
are
batter's
pretty much, you
box.
can restake second. But those are pretty much your three options there.
But Jimmy, yeah, to your point though, if you do knock over second and then you touch third, you can't go back to first. Then you only have one option, so you're pretty much going to be out if they can get the ball back to second base because you have to go in succession. My point was that
Okay, got it.
if you're on your way to third and haven't reached third, then you're still technically still on second, which means you can go back to first.
Well, but okay, if the stake falls over, and then you touch third base, you didn't legally advance to third base, which means you're still on second.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I guess that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So technically you can still go back to first if you want, but the defense also has the ability to literally just take the ball and sit on the second stake if they wanted to while they figure out what you're going to do. You know, at that point it's your responsibility as the stake runner to attempt to restake or get back to first or run around the field. You know, now the umpire at that point may declare like, "Hey, we gotta keep the game rolling," and then the defense will have to pitch to the next batter. But you have those three options: attempt to
Yeah.
restake second, regress to first, or just monkey around. But nobody behind you can advance to second until you restake second.
Right.
Jimmy, I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
'cause, yeah, in that scenario, right, you're not legally at third yet if it fell before you touch third. I played in games before where like that runner just runs to another part of the field that's the safest place they can be, far away from the ball, which is usually somewhere in the outfield, where hopefully they're not chased down.
Well, but then let's say it's second stake. It's the defense. It's actually in the defense's benefit to then pitch to the next batter because that batter only has one base to go to. So if
Right.
they hit just an absolute screamer, right, you still have to make your way back to second, restake before you can move on, which gives the defense time. So it's actually in the defense their benefit if you just go all the way out into Timbuktu, you know?
Yeah, which the most beautiful scenario for the defense perspective is if like the offense's best hitter is the next one up to bat. And there's like no other option. Let's say it's the bottom of the order. Like the offense has to put that guy up there, and that guy
Mhm.
cannot go more than first base after that ball is struck. Um, it'll buy time for that guy ahead of him to go back and restake second, but the amount of ground that either of them would cover after that hit is going to be considerably less than if second was upright. So that is a fun little limitation there for the defense.
No,
Cool.
on top of it with number 37 as well. So when in that scenario again, if we were to go over it again, instead of the stake falling over before you were to reach third, it falls over after you have legally advanced to third. That is no longer the stake runner's responsibility. As an umpire, I have typically, if I'm next to the stake, I will restake it myself. But I've also asked players who I know didn't have the ball because again, hidden ball trick is something that is very important to the game. And as an umpire, I want to do as little as possible to disclose the location of the ball. Uh, I want to know where the ball is so that I'm aware of any play that's happening. But I want to do as little as possible to say, oh, that guy's got the ball. So, now that everybody knows. So what I'll do is I'll have somebody who is not a part of the play, maybe somebody who is normally stationed by the stake that fell over. I will ask that player to then restake that base. Or what we've also done is we've had the teammates of the offense, because it's in the offense's best interest to make sure those stakes are fully planted properly, to come out and potentially pound in that stake.
That's a great point. That's a win-win for the offense and the defense, especially if the defense is in the middle of a hidden ball trick and the offense doesn't realize it. You want to give them the ability to still maintain their stealth. And obviously, it's in the offense's interest to get that stake back up because then they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then more on the hidden ball trick too is then one thing I do is as an umpire, if I've lost track of the ball, because I there's a lot going on if you're just a single umpire watching the game. What I'll do sometimes is I will discreetly go up to somebody I think may have the ball and just say like, "Hey, can I see inside your glove real quick?" And they'll open it that far, and I'll be able to see into the web of their glove, and it's like, okay, I know that they don't have the ball, you know.
Right. But even that has to be done in a discreet way that maybe the offense isn't paying attention to.
Yeah. And
So,
sometimes I'll do it to people that I know don't have the ball just to, again, keep that discretion up. But that's another point here, not there. So,
right. Any further comments with this section? Okay. Moving on to obstruction. This is a very important rule. Number 38. If, in the opinion of the umpire, a fielder not associated with a play intentionally obstructs the path of a stake runner, then the stake runner shall be granted the stake to which he was attempting to advance or retreat to, or in the case that in the umpire's opinion the runner would have advanced more than one stake on the play, then the corresponding number of stakes shall be granted him. So, Jimmy, this is your area of expertise. You've seen cases where you would say one thing was obstruction, one thing was not. Can you kind of break this down for us?
I think the important word there is intentionally. So, there are times where people are going to get in each other's way, right? And that's just part of the game, right? But if somebody is, in your opinion, intentionally getting in the way, intentionally doing things that are unsportsmanlike to try and get an unfair advantage in that area, then it's your job as the umpire to step in and rectify that.
I do want to point out, I agree with Jimmy, and this is not like baseball. In baseball, if you obstruct, even if it's not intentional, it's illegal. But in town ball, it has to be intentional. That's one thing I want to point out. Second, notice it also says that a fielder not associated with a play. So if, in the opinion of an umpire, player is associated with a certain play, like for example, the ball is being thrown to that person, then that fielder is allowed to obstruct the base.
You have a
Like,
right to that same space. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like old school baseball where the catcher would intentionally block the plate from the runner. He can do that as long as he's part of the play. It's the same in town ball, but that applies for every base. So in that sense, technically, town ball is a contact sport.
I
And
look at it like football.
yeah,
Like with football, once the ball is thrown in the air, both the receiver and the defender have a right to go for the ball.
that's
Um,
right.
and in town ball, even though there are no, well, I shouldn't say there are no, very rarely are there instances of there being a forced put out at a stake. A lot of the times you're trying to stop the stake runner from getting to the one safe space that he can go to. So you need to occupy that space. And so as long as you are attempting to catch the ball, attempting to put a tag on that runner, you have a right to that space, same as the runner does.
That's
Because there
exactly
are
right.
no base paths, there's literally an infinite number of ways to get to that base, so the runner has options.
Yeah,
And
and
in
as
this
far
case,
as
the
I'm
defender, yeah,
That's right.
good.
That's right. And as far as I'm concerned, that gives the runner the right then to, if you're in the way and you're part of the play, to run that fielder over because they're in your space as far as trying to get to the base. In that sense, it's a contact sport. You just have to understand going into it. It's a lot like other sports, basketball, soccer. There's a contact element to the sport, and that's part of the fun and the beauty of town ball is that contact aspect of the game that existed in old school baseball that people love to watch.
And then I think that starts to go into the whole unsportsmanlike thing as well. So that does get into a point where you need to be aware of, again, intentionality on both sides. Like if somebody's going in and just like dropping the shoulder, sweeping the backs of the legs, and really pile driving the person into the dirt, it's like, okay, you weren't going for the stake at that point. You were trying to hurt somebody, you know?
Exactly.
And so that is where, as an umpire, again, you have to make sure that everything's on the up and up. Making sure that you are watching both sides to see, did he do everything he could to go for the stake and the guy was just in the way? And did the defender, was he just trying to catch the ball and he happened to, run into the stake runner? What was the intention of their actions? And that's hard to do live, but most of the time you'll get a gut feeling.
Yes. Very well said.
Yeah, I myself have maybe never seen a true example of that scenario where the runner kind of pushes the defender out of the way. Most of the time, because it's already rare enough of an instance for a ball being fielded to the baseman at that exact moment when that might happen, because it's actually more advantageous usually for the batter to get lower and slide down to the ground that much more away from the defender's hands and their glove. Because if the defender's standing that close to the stake, you might as well slide to get around it. But because if this defender already has the ball and they've caught it from the outfield and you're not at the stake yet, like running them over could result in them not tagging you out because of the shock of it happening. But the success rate of the defender getting you out with the ball anyway at that point is just so high. Most people just don't go for that option. And they also just try and dodge around because again, there's nothing prohibiting running outside of the baseline, the invisible theoretical baseline. So, but the day this happens, I would love to actually see it to understand what the rules would allow here in this case. Moving on to strikes. Rule 39, if the batter attempts to hit the ball with his bat and misses, and if a member of the opposing team catches the ball on that pitch without it first hitting the ground, aka a pop fly, then a strike shall be called against the batter. Or no, I'm
Not a pop
sorry.
fly.
No. That's just a catcher. That's just not a dropped catch. My bad.
Yeah.
In that case, a strike shall be called against the batter, provided that the fielder maintains possession of the ball until the conclusion of the play. Right, you can't drop it. Number 40, if the batter hits the ball and does not attempt to advance to first, then a strike shall be called against the batter. So, yeah, pretty simple stuff here.
I got to address 39 though, because this comes up a lot. It does not say that the bat has to pass the batting point. It does not say the batter's wrists have to be broken. It does not say the batter has to pull the bat back when bunting. None of those things are written into the rules. That way, the league or the teams, the captains before the game, or the umpire, they all have the freedom by which whatever is agreed upon to decide whether or not the batter has actually attempted to hit the ball. It's meant vague on purpose to give a lot more freedom either to the umpire or to the captains or to the league, depending on who's going to make that decision as far as what it means for the batter attempting to hit the ball. Does that make sense, Jimmy?
It does, and I think a prime example of setting a hard rule and an easy way to circumvent it would be, let's take baseball's rule of the breaking the plane, right? Where if you swing and it goes past a certain point, you've determined that you have attempted to hit the ball, therefore it's a swing, right? That's all well and good when there is fair and foul territory. In Townball, you could try and hit the ball backwards if you wanted to. So that rule doesn't make any sense if you're trying to go, okay, well, here and forwards is a swing and here and backwards isn't, when you're swinging the opposite direction.
Right. Yeah, the plane doesn't matter at that point. It's because so what constitutes a swing? I mean, this is why rule 40, if the batter hits the ball and doesn't attempt to advance to first, then a strike shall be called against the batter. That's why that rule still, like, you can still have a strike off the bat that you didn't run on if the pitch just happened to hit your bat behind your head in the rested stance that most batters have with the bat behind their shoulder. Yeah, like if the ball hits that bat, doesn't matter how the bat was used, that is a strike.
And by the way, I think this might have been one of the rules that we had to change, because even if you do attempt to run to first base, a strike is still called against you. So the rule should read something to the effect of, if a batter hits the ball, then a strike should be called against the batter.
Right.
Yeah, if a batter hits the ball, regardless of attempting to advance to first or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And let me see if we did a change on that. We did. It says the updated rule that we agreed on was, if the batter hits the ball, then a strike shall be called against him. That's what it says.
Right, because
like
because if you hit the ball, it's a strike, basically.
Well, and if you hit the ball as a batter, technically any hit as a batter is a strike, because once you're on base, you are not a batter anymore. You're a stake runner. Unless in the scenario where the batter after you has not gotten into the box yet, and you only went as far as first base, and you decide to go back in the box. That's the only exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really wanted to, you could regress from second back to first and then go to the batter's box if you were really wanting to. But why?
Yeah, you could do that. It could happen.
It could.
You would have to
It is
be
possible.
the only scenario I think that could be attempted is you were the last batter and well, the rest of your batting order is not super strong in hitting, and the one stake runner in front of you is like the slowest person on earth. And
Yeah.
maybe you thought the hit you made was enough to buy them time to get to another base, but maybe they like tripped on their way there or something, and then they didn't advance as far as you thought they would off of your hit, and you need to hit again to buy them more running time. Like that's the only scenario I would imagine you would try and go back that far. But then again,
Yeah.
like you risk getting out too. So
Yeah.
anything else on this section before we talk about strikeouts?
Nope.
Okay, strikeouts. Number 41, a third strike caught in the air is an out. So yeah, there's that. Provided that the fielder remains in possession of the ball until the conclusion of the play. If a batter, number 42, if a batter who has been pitched to has not completed an at-bat before an inning ends, he shall resume his at-bat in the subsequent inning with a new count of strikes. Yeah, so 42 is pretty
Can you
plain.
read that again, please?
Number 42, or both of them?
Yep. Number 42 specifically, please.
Yeah. If a batter who has been pitched to has not completed an at-bat before an inning ends, he shall resume his at-bat in the subsequent inning with a new count of strikes.
Okay. So I guess my main question is what are we considering completed? Because in the case that I wanted to come back to the previous conversation we had, in the case where you are running from the batter's box to first stake and a teammate gets pegged up before you could make it to first, but after you've left the batter box, are we considering that to be a completed at bat?
That's exactly what we need to resolve is because it sounds like what you're saying is that, oh, yeah, that then a batter has completed their at bat because they left the box. That's what you were suggesting earlier, right?
In my opinion, once when you're in the batter's box and you present yourself as ready, you are a batter. Once you leave the batter's box, you are a stake runner. And so if you leave the batter's box, you have then at that point said, I am no longer a batter. You have completed your at bat.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only thing is that you still can go back into the box though, right?
You can, and once you do, you re-enter as a batter, not as a stake runner.
Yeah.
So that to me is the distinction, is that in the batter's box, you are a batter. You don't do any batting outside of the batter's box. Right. Outside of the batter's box, you are a stake runner. You don't do any stake running in the batter's box.
That makes sense.
Yeah, as long as that distinction begins the moment you leave the box, that seems fine. Although maybe just to make things abundantly clear, it might not be a bad idea to attach at the end of that, provided that the subsequent batter on the offense's roster has not stepped into the box yet. Or has.
Is it stepping into the box or declaring themselves ready? That's the real thing.
Can you be ready if you're not in the box yet?
Can you be in the box and not be ready?
Yes.
So then what determines the next at-bat starting? Is it being in the box or is it being ready? Because sometimes you can step into the box to get equipment out of it, but then you're not ready.
Stepping into the box with no intention, like stepping into the box with no intention to leave it other than stake running, but not yet being ready to be pitched to. There's very little examples of that batter stepping into the box to like grab something, walk out of the box to discard that thing. Let's say it's like an extra bat and they want to use a different bat.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like as a courtesy, either someone else on the offense or the catcher could do that on the batter's behalf so that there's not confusion about what constitutes the batter being in the box or not officially
To
yet.
me, once that batter declares he's ready, that's when the new at bat starts. Anything that happens before that, because we can have people go in there with the intention of batting, and all of a sudden the team says, "Hey, hold on, we're going to go with somebody else." So until that batter says that he's ready to go, that at bat hasn't started yet. In my opinion.
Not to complicate the issue, but in my mind, the at bat starts when the first pitch has been pitched to him, because we've always said that if someone comes into the batter's box and they've declared they're ready, but then someone over there gets out, that person doesn't have to bat to lead off the next inning because they haven't been pitched to yet. That's what we've always said. They haven't been pitched to yet. Their at bat hasn't been started yet.
I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's what we've been by default been doing so far.
I mean, that's
let's
fine.
Let's say you as the batter, you go up, you hit the ball, right? You go over to first stake, and then next guy comes up, gets in the box, says he's ready to go. But before that pitch gets thrown, right? You decide to sprint back into the batter's box, and the batter then hands you the bat.
No. I don't think you can go back if there's someone in the box. Does it say that anywhere?
There's nothing saying you can't.
This is exactly what we're arguing at this very moment.
I see.
I
see. Yeah. That's a good question, because that would be a safety issue if you're trying to run back in while the ball's being pitched.
So then can you undeclare yourself ready, step back out, the other guy sprints in, and then he takes over the at-bat?
I don't think so.
Okay, so then it's once you declare that you're ready.
Okay, I don't think you should be able to go back. I think I agree with Grant then. I don't think you should be able to go back if the person steps into the box.
So from the perspective of the stake runner on first, for safety reasons, if there's a guy in that box, you just should not go back there. Like I agree with Grant. You just shouldn't.
I misunderstood the context. I agree with Grant in that.
Relative
go ahead.
From the perspective of the person in the box at that moment, however, I still would hold to what we've already discussed, which is that batter is not locked in as the new subsequent batter yet until they're pitched to.
Yeah, I agree.
I think both can be true at the same time.
To me, my perspective is that once you say that you are ready, you've declared yourself as the new batter. And so then at that point, you're like, all right, I'm ready to go. We're ready to do this thing. I'm just waiting for the pitch to come. So if they ask you, you ready? Nope. You may be in the box, but you're not ready yet. Therefore, you're not the new batter.
So therefore, the runner can still go back to the batting box?
Yeah.
At that point?
That's what I think, because there is no play to be had yet. Once you declare yourself ready, the onus is then on the pitcher to then pitch the ball. But prior to that, the onus is on the offense to say, now we are ready to be pitched to.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I still tend to side with Grant in that, but we can debate this later. But those are all really good details.
The only reason
that's just the rule number 42. I think once we determine what completed means, then I think we can reword it. But I think there's a lot to be unpacked there.
I agree.
And my only reason in making the distinction about until they're pitched to is, like, from the offense's perspective, if an out play happens elsewhere in the field before that hypothetically new batter is pitched to, then from the offense's standpoint, they're still not obligated to put that guy up on the next round if they want to do somebody else. So yes. I'm only speaking in terms of like round by round, inning by inning. Like for that present moment, as far as we all are concerned, yeah, of course, that guy's the batter. But we don't know if his status is locked in from inning to inning until he's pitched to.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. In that moment, he's going to be the guy unless something else happens. And I think that moment is when he actually says, hey, I'm the guy. You know, just like how the defense has to designate a pitcher, the offense has to designate a batter.
Should that also apply to the fact that the batter has to bat the next round if the inning ends before he gets pitched to? Do you think that is the case?
No, because
Okay.
no play has happened yet. You said, I am ready when you're ready. And then something else happens. It's like, all right, cool. That never happened. We can move on to something else now.
So,
You know?
so we agree. So we agree.
We can
then.
only
We just
judge
have
that in
to,
hindsight, though. We
Yeah,
can't do it in the
yeah.
present moment.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are some details we can work out.
Okay.
For sure.
That makes sense to me though. Yeah.
There's a
Nice.
kind of limbo in the very few seconds of time that pass after a batter says he's ready and a first pitch is thrown. But again,
Where he is not yet the batter, but he is designated.
Yeah.
right. But that limbo is so brief and few and short that it becomes kind of immaterial. And it only matters like because of what happens afterward. Its meaning is
Yeah.
not determined by the present. It's determined by the future. So anyway, force outs. Number 43. If a batter hits the ball with the bat on the third strike, then the batter is obligated to attempt to advance to first stake, provided the batter has not already flown out or zoned out on the hit. If another runner occupies first stake on the third strike that has been hit by the batter, then that runner on first must advance to second. And likewise, for any runner on any subsequent stake for which the runner is forced to run by a runner behind him who is also forced to advance to the stake that the subsequent runner is occupying. Number 44, if a batter or runner is forced to run on a third strike, then such a runner can be put out if a fielder knocks the stake to which the batter runner is forced to advance to with the ball, whether thrown or tagged, or provided that the fielder remains possession of the ball until the conclusion of the play with a glove that possesses the ball. So Rule 44 is our only force out rule in the whole game. It's the only way you can do it. What gets confusing for people that haven't really done it before, because it doesn't really happen that often, is where like assuming there are successive runners on several stakes with no gaps in between, which stake they could technically hit to end the inning. Does it have to be only first stake, or can it be just whichever stake is in front of a runner that is forced to run?
It's any stake that is in play because of that force out rule. So just like Rule 43 states, a runner on first must run to second in that instance, and a runner on second is forced to run by a runner on first, being forced by the batter. So in that case, if you have first, second, and batter, you could hit first, second, or third, and all three would be valid force outs.
Right. Yep.
But if you have first, second, fourth, or first and third, you could hit first, or let's say first and third. You could hit first and second, but you could not hit fourth.
Right. You have to have some pretty high Townball IQ in that moment to be paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one feels pretty simple to me. Just to be clear, I've had players hesitate before on this one. If their third strike is not from hitting the ball, and it's from just a swing and a miss caught in the air by the catcher,
They're out.
they're out. They're done.
Yeah.
Right?
It's my favorite play in Townball. A normal 1-2-3 strikeout.
Yes. Yep.
As an umpire, it happens so rarely in Townball. I get so pumped up for it.
Let's go.
I'm like, there's another peg. All right, fine, he's out, I guess. on a strikeout, I go all in on it. It's great. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, they are very rare. I do like them as well.
Well, and your call actually, like the sound you make is actually different on a 1-2-3 strikeout too, as the umpire, right?
Well, yeah, because I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm hamming this one up.
Well, not just that, but like the literal like thing that you say out of your mouth is not the
Oh
same.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're normally on any other out, I'll just call it out. On a strikeout, I'll say strike three.
Yeah. Or
Usually followed up
it's
by an out.
yeah,
That depends.
but it's the arm motion too. Like
Yeah,
in baseball, with the umpires behind the plate, every strike he points to the right, and then with the strikeout, it's the fist closed, pull down
yeah.
motion,
The punch out.
the punch out. Yeah. One rule for flyouts, 45. A batted ball caught in the air is an out, provided that the fielder maintains possession of the ball until the conclusion of the play. Any notes here? I think it's pretty clear.
I just want to point out that I don't remember where it's written, but as in baseball, on a flyout, if the runners try to score before the ball is caught, the runs don't count, just like in baseball.
Good point.
Yeah.
Is that explicit in our rules?
I don't remember. We'll see. We'll find out.
Because I've talked with you about this exact thing many times before, where I have not seen an explicit prohibition of that. And so I've had people argue that runs made before a flyout is caught, like assuming the run is attempted during the time the ball is in the air after the hit, they've argued that those can count. But I need to be able to find chapter and verse for that one. So maybe that's
Right.
yeah. Jimmy,
Right.
I mean,
you
a simple provision at the end of this one here could simply state any runners that scored during the play of the ball being in the air like that uh, do not count.
Yeah.
yeah, that would be abundantly clear. Illegal pitches, 46. If a pitcher delivers an illegal pitch to a batter, then no strike, zone out, or fly out will be called against the batter on that pitch. So, what's an example of this, Jimmy?
One quick example that I've settled into something, and I still don't know if it's the right way to go about it. But let's say you have a pitcher who his foot is very clearly on or over the pitching line when the ball is released from his hand. That is an illegal pitch. The thing I've settled on doing is that whenever that happens, I will very loudly call no ball in reference to cricket, where an illegal pitch is called a no ball. And I've noticed that can cause some confusion, and I don't know if it's because I'm using the word ball, which in some contexts can be construed as the opposite of a strike. So I don't know if that's causing the confusion. I don't know if there's a better way to go about that, but
I think
I
there's a better
usually
way.
just call it out. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can jump in. So when I'm umpiring, if there's an illegal pitch, I won't say a word, right? Like suppose the pitcher steps in the line in the pitch, right? If there's a strike, I'll say no strike, pitcher over the line. And the reason I don't say anything is because if something happens to the batter's favor, like he hits the ball over the fence, that's still completely legal. Then you can just say to the pitcher, by the way, you stepped in the line, so if you had hit the zone anyway, you'd been safe.
Okay.
The only thing, though, to your point, though, is for the sake of the runners, they might need to know. But the thing is, usually by that time, if they're stealing, it's too late anyway. If they're stealing, they get thrown out. They're going to be out. There's
Right.
not much you can do about it because the provision doesn't say anything about the runners, right? The point is, there's only three things that can't happen on a no ball, like you said, right? It can't be a strike, it can't be a zone out, or it can't be a fly out. Everything else, the ball's in play. So if none of those three things happen, there's no reason to say anything. But in each of those
Okay.
cases, everyone's going to know that those things happen. Like suppose it's a fly out, then you can just stop and say, the batter is not out, the pitcher's foot crossed the line. everybody back to your bases or something like that, or even while the ball's in the air or something like that, because I don't want to interfere with, like you said, with what's happening in the play. So I usually don't really say anything unless I know for sure that I can say something without interfering with the play. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. Like you only want to say something
Yeah.
once it starts to negatively affect the offense.
Yeah, or defense, because there's no reason to say anything because there's only three things that can't happen on an illegal pitch. You can pitch illegally all you want, and you can use that as a strategy because you'll throw people off like, why is he pitching so close? Well, actually, I'm just doing it because I'm allowed to. It just doesn't count as a strike, a zone out, or a fly out. Again, the trickery of Townball is that you can do whatever you want that's not written in the rules. Just like you can steal first before the ball is pitched, right? You just can't and throw people off. You're like running to first and you run to the outfield. They're chasing you. They think they got you out, but actually I'm not even a legal runner yet. Meanwhile, my teammates are all scoring runs, right? So you can do all these illegal things all you want. They just don't count towards anything. But they can be used as trick plays. Fox are another example.
I think I like that a lot better. I think I like that a lot better.
Yeah, like
Illegal
illegal
once there is
pitching.
a negative result. Yeah.
Illegal pitching as a strategy to like confuse base runners. I have not seen it tried before, but I could easily conceive it working in a certain case, especially for base runners that can't see close enough to realize that they're stepping over the line. So, yeah, like
Grant, you can do this. You can do an illegal pitch, and the batter says, "What are you doing? You're pitching so close." I said, "Oh shoot, that's right. You're allowed to walk to first. You get to go walk to first." They walk to first. You tag them. They're out. If there's an umpire, that's legal because they're listening to you, the deceiver, as opposed to the one who's actually supposed to be making the calls. Wouldn't you agree, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think the other thing about it too is, let's say you're pitching from closer, right? They can hit the ball as long as they want, and I guess then the dare is, all right, hit it in the air so there's no negative consequences. Because if you hit that ball on the ground, and you try and run, I can get you. You know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or yeah, another scenario would be like if I know for a fact that this person's going to steal, I'll just pitch a little bit closer to do a little pitch out to get the runner out. That's totally legal too.
It can't be the first pitch though. The first pitch has to be a legal pitch.
I'm talking about the other runners.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if a pitcher pitches like that from the very beginning, is it technically a first pitch if it wasn't legal?
No, it's not a pitch, but you can still use it as a decoy to get runners to get off the base because it's the ball still in play. The runners can still steal when it's not a legal pitch.
Right. So as an umpire, if that is the very first pitch, then you got to call it out and be like, hey, that pitch didn't count as a first pitch.
Exactly.
And so the runner still has to wait for a legal first pitch to be able to steal first.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly right.
In the case of Artashis, what you could do, you could, where if you know he's taken off on the very first pitch, do an illegal pitch the first time, right?
Exactly.
And then
exactly.
he's going to reach first, and then technically his at bat never started because he never actually got pitched to, which means that he's not a legal stake runner. So now he just wasted all of his energy, and now he has to do it again.
And now you know what he's going to do.
Right.
Wow. There's actually a whole world of like things that you can use to like gas people out by doing them.
Interesting. Now then, okay, then it becomes at what point does it, let's say again, first pitch of the at bat, and you just keep doing illegal pitches, is that going to be more on sportsmanlike, or is that like, hey, we got to get the game moving, now I'm riding the pitcher, like, do this right.
Yeah, because you have to remember that the captains, according to rule number 1 or 2, the captains have to agree on the umpire, which means they're trusting him to call it fair. So the umpire has to take that authority and say, no, I'm not going to allow that because that's not fair. That's the umpire's call. If you do that again, you're ejected.
Yeah, I like it.
That's the point. The umpire has to have that much authority for this to work.
Yeah.
And that authority is given by the captains. They have to agree to it.
So actually having an umpire present gives more freedom for people to try and use illegal pitching as a defensive strategy because if everybody's self-umpiring, people can get confused really quickly, I think.
Yes.
Especially more inexperienced players. It's like telling somebody their shoe's untied and then they look at their shoe. Like this only works like in a self-umpiring context. This only works without confusion with people for whom you tell them their shoe is untied, but and they don't look at their shoe and they know you're messing with them. Like to keep the metaphor consistent. So yeah, having that ultimate external judge and verifier there allows for the defense to have fun with that.
Like, why am I going to listen to the other team? I'm listening to the umpire.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of life lessons here, right? You don't listen to the enemy in war.
Well, yeah.
In war, you don't listen to the enemy. The enemy, there's trickery all the time, and we have to learn these lessons somehow. That these are important things that we have to learn as people.
Yeah.
Yep. Rule 47, box. The pitcher takes a step toward the batting point so as to pitch the ball to the batter. Then the pitcher must pitch the ball before any of the stake runners, including the batter, can be put out. Yeah.
So if I can speak on this one here, box I will call out loudly and clearly because that to me is something that everybody needs to know. So that way the defense can fix it, the offense can take advantage of it, and so everybody knows clearly what it is. That's something that has to be called out clearly and immediately.
I agree.
Because then there will be both teams saying, one team will say, no, that wasn't a balk, and the other team will be saying, yes, it was, and there's chaos going on. So there needs to be one clear voice. Yes, that was a balk. You know what to do. Fix it.
Yep, just like an offsides in soccer, someone has to call it immediately offside so everybody knows what's going on. Same thing. You can just, what I do is I say balk and I raise my hand. I just say balk. That's my signal for a balk. I raise my hand.
Yep.
But I agree with Jimmy, 100%.
So to be clear, and this is something that has come up before. Let's say we have a guy on first base and then we have a batter in the box. The batter has not been pitched to yet. The pitcher, we're assuming the batter has communicated that they're ready. So the pitcher is, legally winding up for their first pitch, but they step forward to first base and they try to throw the guy at first out. They cannot legally do that.
Well, no, they step towards first.
Which means they have to throw to first, right?
Yes, because granted, there are different pitching motions and stuff like that. But typically where the foot lands is where you're throwing to. So if you are stepping towards first base and throwing towards first base, that's fine. That's not a balk. If you're stepping towards first base and you're throwing towards the zone, that gets into a conversation of like, is this his normal pitching motion? But then at the same time, you're pitching towards the zone, so the batter should be ready for that. I think the one time it becomes an issue is when you are stepping towards the zone as if to pitch, and then you throw it somewhere else. That's really what a balk is.
Right. Or you pump fake and you don't throw.
Right. Once you step towards home, sorry, not home, geez. Once you step towards the zone as if to throw, that is when you are obligated then to throw a pitch.
Right.
And the umpire has to decide what that looks like. The umpire has to decide, that was a pitch, that was not a pitch. Again, authority to the umpire.
Yeah, because you have the issue in baseball of people balking. It's like, oh, lefties, they're stepping towards first, but it's really just a really exaggerated leg slide, and that's on the umpires to determine, is that a part of his normal pitching motion or is that a balk? It's the same thing here. You have to determine what is a normal pitching motion. Is this something like there are some pitchers that will pull out a short step for a pitch, where instead of doing a full stride and they'll go a full body length and throw like normal, they'll just be standing there and they'll just take whatever their front foot is, just maybe do a little half step slide thing, and that's their pitching motion sometimes. So understanding that that would be a balk because you did your normal like half step slide and then you threw somewhere else. That's not right.
Right. I don't know if we've had enough pitchers in Townball like have enough wherewithal to try that kind of a move. Maybe you've seen it, but I don't think I have.
Shark likes to do it.
By the way, we've actually decoyed base runners through balks in our pavilion games where the pitcher will intentionally balk. The runners will be like, "That's a balk," and they'll start running. Then they'll get back, actually pitch the ball, and throw the runner out at third. So that's again, you can do a lot of decoys and trick plays even with illegal pitches.
Right. Because the balk is technically within the realm of the illegal pitch, which we described earlier.
Well, not technically. What I'm saying is that after you balk, once they start running, then step back and throw a legal pitch, and now they're stuck because they're already starting to run.
Well, sorry. Use
the stake runner's aggression on a balk against them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but if you're making a stepping motion to throw to the zone and you don't throw to the zone, you still have to throw to the zone before you get anybody else out.
Exactly.
Correct. And what he's talking about is do a fake step towards the zone so that you balk. The runner on second gets excited, says, "Ooh, that's a balk. I'm free to go." And then immediately afterwards, throw a real pitch so that the catcher catches it, guns it to third, and catches the guy off.
Right. So it's the catcher making the out, not the pitcher. Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a move I've seen done a couple times, and it's a great one. It's one of my favorite ones. Ground rules. This is pretty much the remainder of the rules here. 48. In the case that a ball pitched to the batter hits the batter, then the ball shall be in play without any reservations. Similarly, if a pitched ball hits any part of the zone other than at the rectangle, or in the case that the ball bounces on the ground or off the batter and then hits the rectangle, that ball shall be considered to be in play. So this is just, we don't do walks. If the ball hits the ground before it hits the zone, it's not a zone. If it hits the batter and then the zone, it's not a zone. And that's an important rule because if that was legal, that would incentivize pitchers to hit off of people's bodies, and that's not good.
So long as the pitch would have not hit the zone if the batter wasn't there.
Right.
Say that one more time.
Because if the ball would have hit the zone if the batter wasn't there, then it's a body before zone, it's an out.
Oh, because that's getting in the realm of obstruction.
So like let's say you're the batter, right? And you are standing directly in front of the zone. Pitcher pitches the ball, it hits your body. That's an out because it would have hit the zone if you weren't standing directly in front of it.
Right. And that's all covered in Rule 23, by the way.
And let's say you're completely off to the side, you're nowhere near the zone, the ball hits you, you're a foot and a half away from the zone, right? And like not even any part of you anywhere near it, and then it ricochets into the zone. That's not an out because the ball would not have hit the zone if you were somewhere else.
And that also is in Rule 23 because it specifically says that it can't first hit the batter before hitting the zone, unless you're blocking the zone.
Do some of the details of Rule 23 need to be reiterated in Rule 48?
No.
48. What does 48 say?
Basically just saying if it hits you and you weren't in front of the zone and it hits the zone, that's not a zone.
Well, but it doesn't specify with that extra detail and if you weren't in front of the zone in Rule 48.
I think because it's already been covered in Rule 23.
Yeah, 23 is about whether or not it's an out. 48 is about whether or not it's in play. Those are two different.
Okay.
Okay.
objectives.
I see. That makes sense. 49. Runs that score. Oh, here we go. We actually do have this codified. Runs that score before an out is made in an inning shall count, except in the case of a flyout or force out. In the case of a flyout or force out, no runs that take place after the moment the ball was hit shall count. There it is. It's explicit. In every other case, runs that score after the moment an out is made in an inning shall not count. Well, wait.
Nice.
Shouldn't it say in every other case? Hang on. Shouldn't it say in every other case, runs that score after the moment an out is made? Oh, it's after the moment an out is made. That's the keyword. Never mind. We're good. No comments there?
Nope.
No.
50. If a batter hits the ball onto the ground, and as a result, the ball exits the playing area on account of the hit, then the batter and any concurrent stake runner shall be granted the stake that they were advancing to at the time the ball was hit, and 2 more stakes. This is the ground rule triple rule.
Yes.
If a batter hits the ball in the air out of the playing area, then the batter shall be granted an automatic home run and thus scoring along with any other stake runners who were on stake at the time the ball had been hit. If a ball leaves the playing area without having been hit, then the runners will be granted the stake that they were advancing to at the time the ball went out of play and 1 more stake. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. So like if the ball leaves the playing area as a result of some silly thing with like the defense, I guess,
Yes.
then it's a ground rule double.
Yeah. What like if you're in between first and second, you can go to third.
Okay. Got it. So like let's say it's like
And if you were standing on second, I think you get third, if I remember correctly. I don't think you get fourth.
right.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
Yeah.
this would come up in the case where like you have someone in between second and third. They run way out into the outfield to bait the defense so the guy on 4 can try and steal home. They're chasing the guy in the outfield down, and they
And
try and
he
peg
tries to
hit
peg him.
and they miss, and the ball goes out of play. Then everybody is essentially granted 1 more stake.
Everyone's granted the
That
base they're going to +1.
if
Right.
they're already on a base, they get 1 stake.
Yeah, if they're running, then they get that stake they're getting 2 + 1. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I have not really seen an example of that one before because usually the ball is not that close to the edge of the playing area, like at any point in the game ever.
That's because
Now
this is townball, not baseball.
Yeah. Now, there are instances where different fields will require different rules for out of play areas. But that again is something that can be determined before the game starts. So to put a finer point on it, when we were developing Townball at University High School, we were playing on a practice band field that happened to have a building that was really close to the batting point that had an open top to it. So it was determined that if the ball was hit into that building, even though the ball was hit in the air and left the field of play, because of its proximity, it was considered a ground rule triple, not a home run.
That is
So
correct.
there are instances where a ball can be hit in the air and be considered not a home run. So that has to be determined beforehand, but that's something that can be possible too.
Yeah, and the way to say it, Jimmy, in agreement with you, is that these are the default rules that the umpire must enforce unless the coaches agree upon it beforehand. These are default, right? But you can always adjust it according to what you have available to you. Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to make a point of it for folks that are watching this later on too. Like it's a possibility. You can add that in. It's something you can do.
Exactly.
And having now played at that field, uh, where on the Fresno State campus, I know exactly why that rule is necessary. Because those buildings are really close. Um, but typically, like that is the most like tight space I think I have ever played town ball anywhere. Everywhere else I've played, it's been pretty wide open in every direction. But that's why you need these specificities. Number 51. As long as the ball is in the playing area, the ball shall be considered live at all times, and runners may advance from stake to stake at will. In keeping with the rules outlined in this document, no timeouts shall be granted during play except in the case of injury or for some other reason deemed necessary by the umpire.
One other point on the end of there, if deemed necessary by the umpire, when play resumes, in the interest of fairness, what I have taken to is that I have made sure that stake runners start at the stake and the ball is in the pitcher's hands, and it's clearly shown that the ball is in the pitcher's hands when play resumes, in the interest
Yeah.
of fairness.
Yeah, because that's an umpire timeout. Exactly.
Right.
That's a different scenario. And that's not very common.
Right.
Yeah, that's good to get out there for the record. Because it happens
Jimmy
so
and I-
rarely.
Jimmy and I tend to agree almost 100% word for word every time we talk about these things. So it's been good.
Number 52. The 13 players that make up a town ball team shall be the same 13 players throughout the duration of the game, except in the case that it is impossible for a particular player to continue playing for the duration of the game. If the umpire agrees that it is impossible for a player to continue playing for the duration of the game, then and only then will a substitute player be introduced according to the ground rules set before the game agreed upon by both captains.
This one I have to address. Okay, so this is an important rule that people just reading the document wouldn't know why it's here. In Major League Baseball, you have 25 people on the roster and you can bring substitutes in, which means you have a pitching staff that sits on the bench and rests, and they come in fresh late in the game. That's how the game is designed. Town ball doesn't work that way because there is no inning limit. Fatigue has to be built into the game. Otherwise, it's possible the game will never end. If you always have a fresh pitcher you can bring in from wherever or from a large roster, it makes it really hard to score. So because we want the games to end and they end with scoring, and the pitchers are the ones that are eventually going to get fatigued enough to where they become hittable, that allows the game to be won by the team that can endure the longest, like a good boxing match. That's built into the game. And if Thomas isn't here, but he knows that we've had games that have been 6 hours long, and they're so fun because it's like you're playing at that point. You're playing to see who's the last man standing, who can last until the end of this game. And at some point, the pitchers will get tired enough, and the batting will catch up, and the game will end. So you don't want fresh substitutes. That's why the same 13 players have to finish the game. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's really important. Yeah, because like there are games that just don't seem to end, and the only thing that seems to really draw the game to an end is one team or both teams just decide to alter what they're doing based on their energy level. They either go super hard or they just kind of like give up. And that's not that dynamic is not apples to apples anymore once a fresh player is introduced.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, there have been pickup games I played, several pickup games I played where we have people arrive late, and then we just, if it's several people, we just kind of divvy them up across both teams, and in that sense, both teams are getting subs. They're not really subs. You're just like adding to the total number of the team because we don't have 13 to a side. In that sense, that doesn't seem unfair because both teams are benefiting from adding more people. But again,
it tends to be more in pickup games. For league and more professional play, you're usually going to have your 13 guys from the beginning. And so that seems more like a case of of extreme injury or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, in pickup games, there are many things I encourage that are not necessarily present in a league or tournament game for the very reason that they include more people in gameplay. I'm very pro get people playing no matter what for pickup games, and so that means I set a precedent of verbal consent only on whether you're ready in the batter's box, for example, right? You know, somebody who is just getting used to this game, there's a lot of concessions I make. And that's why at this All-Star game in South Bend, Indiana this last July, this is the first time that many of my friends who have only played pickup were playing a real umpired game. And that's where these things kind of came out. So I think in regions where we have a lot of new playing going on, those teams and those players just really need to understand what they might need to adjust for when playing a game umpired according to this exact rule set. And just again, and this is where Rule 54 comes into play. Like as long as both captains are on the same page, you can kind of do whatever you want, really. But that provision is what makes that happen or not happen. So that communication just has to be clear beforehand. But most of the time, when you want to play quote unquote real town ball, aka no compromises made to the rule set by both captains, that just means everybody needs to be on the same page about what's going on if they have been used to a slightly different style back home. But that kind of goes without saying. Sportsmanship 53. The set of rules written in this document shall be considered the complete set of rules for 21st Century Town Ball, and any play during a legal game of the same that does not break or disobey these rules shall be considered legal and shall be considered so until a rule is otherwise added to this set. Whatever is not prohibited is permissible. Of course, unless the umpire disagrees. And then we've already kind of said Rule 54. We said it earlier, but any rule can be changed, spontaneously modified during or before a game, if agreed upon by both captains. But if that does not happen, then every rule in this document shall be considered binding during the game and shall be followed in all cases, and no rule changes can be made if not agreed upon by both captains. 55. Players shall use common sense in keeping safety, fair play, and good sportsmanship in mind when playing 21st Century Town Ball. A player who is unruly or otherwise unreasonable in the opinion of the umpire shall be asked to leave the playing area after being warned. Any comments on these last three?
I don't think I have any comments on these last three, but I do want to point out, in case you didn't notice, that there are exactly 55 rules in Town Ball. 55 is a Fibonacci number. They're broken into 21 sections. Sportsmanship is the 21st sections. 21 is a Fibonacci number. So we really put a lot of time into making sure the Fibonacci sequence is infused into every aspect. I don't think there is an aspect of Town Ball where the Fibonacci sequence isn't used somehow. Anytime numbers could come up, we chose a Fibonacci number as part of the game. And we did that in part because we want the game to have some stability. We don't want people to change it, I don't know how many years from now, into a completely different game. It would be much harder to do that if we have that numerology infused into the game to kind of set into stone. People would be less likely to change something.
I mean, this is just a walkthrough of what we're doing, just reading the rules. The main thing is that especially as an umpire, you want to get out there and just start umpiring games. You will find some weird scenarios that come up that make you question whether or not you even know the rules, and it's important to make sure that you stick with your gut. No matter what, somebody's going to be unhappy with every decision you make.
Yeah.
Understand that going into it. Umpiring is a oftentimes thankless job, right? I've been lucky enough that every game I've umpired has had very nice people that understand that, we're all here here having fun, and we're just trying to make sure that the game goes well. We're trying to make sure that the game is played right and that everybody who goes out there can enjoy it to the absolute fullest of what it is meant to be. And so we need to make sure that we know what that's supposed to look like. So get out there, go place or go umpire some games, find out those weird situations, trust your gut, and then go back and double check to make sure your gut was right. Read up on the rules, refine it, and just get better. You're going to enjoy it a lot better, a lot more, and a lot better if you do.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else, Jones?
No, we love this game, and we're excited people want to watch this and people want to try this game. It's something that we believe in, obviously, and we hope that this game endures way past our lifetime because it is really fun. And we put a lot of time into making this the best possible, the most optimal bat and ball game in existence. So nothing can ever rival it. So please make every effort to preserve the game, especially sportsmanship, for the love of the game, because this is something that we've enjoyed so many times and we want you guys to enjoy it as well.
Yes. I second that motion. Well, thank you very
Grant,
much.
Grant, thanks for hosting this. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you both. And thanks to Tommy from earlier. Very good. I bid you both a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we will talk later.
All right, thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.